So the most expensive email in history and an almost Orwellian secrecy order covering it up from everybody, from us, from the media, from the public, from parliamentarians for years. So who or what was that super-injunction meant to protect? The reputation of a British government or lives of Afghan loyalists?
Well, it was obtained on grounds of protecting the Afghan interpreters, soldiers, people who work with the British forces, but there's no doubt the government at the time, 2023, Rishi Sunak would have been the Prime Minister, Ben Wallace was the Defence Secretary, it would have also protected them.
Their reputation.
Yeah, because you don't get the accountability. If there has been I can understand, it pains me to say why it was granted, but you couldn't... Why was it in force for so long? And you do need that accountability. Somebody's made this a horrific blunder, but the whole Afghanistan invasion war aftermath has been catastrophic. It's not just this, it's all been catastrophic. It was reckless. I think 457 British personnel died in that war. The total cost of the fighting was around 40 billion. Then you've got this bill to 6 or 7 billion, honouring debts of honour to Afghans who risked their lives and worked with us, including the billion or so spent on rescuing people who were on that list that was leaked. But the whole episode has been a disaster for Britain.
So just to give people the detail.
This basic question. I don't get that the injunction went on to protect Afghan lives, because once that email had been sent and it was out there, and the Taliban had seen it, covering that story wouldn't make any difference. It couldn't take that email back.
The Taliban say that they saw it. We don't know the truth. This is all very murky stuff. I mean, obviously, the government actually does censor newspapers. We may be not aware of that in our day-to-day lives, but they have something called a D notice.
Yes.
If there's a national security issue, the government can issue a D notice. It's very, very rare. This is the first time they've had a super-injunction. We know about super-injunctions because of the lives of celebrities who use super-injunctions. Very unprecedented for a government to use super-injunction.
Can we just explain exactly what a super-injunction is? Sorry, because I think So, an injunction means you're not allowed to release the information. A super-injunction means you're not even allowed to discuss it. So we're in a situation...
You're not allowed to say
you're not allowed to say this injunction.
There is an injunction that exists. So you're in a situation where Ben Wallace, Defence Secretary at the time, who was very passionately trying to look after Afghan people publicly, on interviews, on this show and everywhere else, John Healey, the shadow at the time, he knew about the leak, we understand, or that's the impression that we've been given.
Yes, I think...
But couldn't even tell Keir Starmer because he wasn't allowed to do that. And so there's a whole list of people that couldn't be involved in this discussion. Meanwhile, you know, 19,000 details were leaked, but potentially we're talking of tens of thousands of people who were loyal to British forces whose lives are at risk. And I think what's hard to understand is what's changed that it can now be released if only a number of those are now safe? Are they now all at risk?
I think what's changed...
Before we get on to the money and everything else.
I think what's changed is the Taliban, the authorities in Afghanistan will know who were interpreters, who were soldiers, who served in the Afghan National Army too, not just with the British. And if they were going to take reprisals, they would have done so already.
I mean, to Richard's point about who was this protecting then, in a way it does feel like it was protecting the government more, because the super-injunction doesn't affect what's communicated globally. It doesn't stop the Taliban getting access to it. It only stops
the argument was that the British government
it.
didn't know if the Taliban had got hold of it, and that they were working at pains to make sure that the leaked data didn't get into the hands of the Taliban and was contained. And part of that strategy was to get a super-injunction so that nobody could, as it were, inadvertently alert the Taliban. That is the argument. The reason it's been lifted is because the press have gone to court, got a judge to look at it and put some of the arguments that Kevin has just put there. So, I mean, there are lots of things stem from this. I mean, there is the general point which Richard was making, which is, you know, a government taking a super-injunction against the press is unprecedented, clamping down
especially for
on
this
press
amount of
freedom.
time, for
Weirdly,
years.
the kind of bringing over of lots of Afghan people who had supported British forces and allied forces in Afghanistan, many people regard as a good thing. There have been huge campaigns for many, many years, particularly by veterans, to get their interpreters over here. I had it in my constituency. People would come and see me because these people did, as we know, risk their lives to support the Allies. So in some ways, the fact that they've come over here is not a bad thing. It's something that we should do. It is the debt of
Well, you could
honour.
say that's a positive spin, but look, here's another thing.
That is my positive. I'm playing devil's advocate, and that's my positive spin.
Here's something else that we don't know this morning, and many would say that we should know. Who did this? Who actually pressed the send button?
Well, I mean,
it's thought to be...
just let me finish the question. Which put the information out there and has, we now know, has cost the country £850 million, possibly more. We don't know if it was a civil servant. We don't know if it was somebody serving in the military. What we do know is that they're still in a job.
It's thought to be a soldier in the Regent's Park Barracks in North London, which is where Special Forces are based, because the Special Forces would...
But we don't know that.
No, but that's what's thought, and it was... They thought they were sending out a list of 150 people to others, where you say, look, are these the right people? Can we bring them in? And instead sent the entire list.
Which are mistakes that people make every day without this catastrophic...
That's very big of you.
People do press send on emails. We all do it. So it's not about a witch hunt necessarily for this individual, but it's about principle of
Well, Kevin and I were talking
about
this before we went on air, which is, everything is about... we live in a world of data. Data is highly sensitive. When you and I get up in the morning and, order something online, we are giving up data. We want it to be secure. So it is bizarre that these highly sensitive names were basically on an Excel spreadsheet, which is the equivalent, basically, of keeping it on a piece of paper and leaving it on your kitchen table. There should have been a secure database. People could only get access to it with passwords and so on, but it wasn't. It was an attachment on an email, the easiest thing to hack, the easiest thing to mistakenly send to the wrong people.
Which is terrifying
so if you're going to
when
look
you
back
think
on lessons, that's one lesson.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it makes you wonder what's going on all the time in our name.
Well, of course,
goodness knows what, troop deployments are hanging around on a Word document that's freely shared
but it can happen
on people's phones.
Because of the way we share data now, at one time it would have been on paper files in a cabinet. So there's a limit to how, you'd have to photocopy it if you're going to send it elsewhere.
Exactly.
Now, it's whether it's the health service, private companies, banks, retailers, you see, it's all sitting there, and it can be sent around.
But there are legions
easily.
of these stories of military officers leaving stuff on buses, ministers leaving CD-ROMs back in the day. So keeping your data secure is a massive job.
But I can see...
But it has to be built into the system.
I can see, right, the data's leaked, it's sort of undetected, or largely undetected for a year, and then a campaigner who's trying to help Afghans who we owed a debt of honour to but were being blocked from coming in, discovered it was out there. I can see why the government would say... don't reveal it now, we'll get these people into the country quickly, and then reveal it. But it seems... It's a lot more convenient for a machine just to keep rolling over. We want to keep this quiet because it's very embarrassing.
Is it? Because the people at risk haven't all been brought here. And they've closed up that operation now.
That's because
so it feels like a half measure.
Yeah, but it's because they've taken the review, the view after a review.
Right.
If you are going to be locked up, tortured, murdered by the Taliban, it would have happened already. Now, that is a risk. You're quite right. That is a risk. But then that would be an argument for the super-injunction going on and on and on.
Exactly.
Right.
On the super-injunction, the other question, which I think most of us must be thinking this morning is, hang on, are there more super-injunctions out there that we have no clue about, that we can't even discuss if we did?
A backbench Tory MP, Mark Pritchard, asked the question in the House of Commons yesterday, can the Minister, I shouldn't laugh, can the Secretary of State tell us if there are any more super-injunctions? No, of course he can't. So, I mean, it is this kind of circular argument.
I think the government has said it was the first, and it's the only one they have. They used to be taken out by public figures, and of course we were never allowed to discuss them. Some of them later emerged. But it's the same with injunctions. You can say somebody's got an injunction, but you can't say what it's for. But no, I knew the cases of a big media figure wanting to cover up what they'd been up to. People taking drugs and people being involved in sexual liaisons where they, very high profile, and be very careful here because I'd breaching injunctions.
Yeah, be careful.
Because they say it would be embarrassing to the kids if it came out. Or it's a breach of my privacy.
Point. If there aren't any more government super-injunctions, then a question to the Defence Minister, who will be Defence Secretary talking to later today, are there any more super-injunctions? He could legitimately say, no, there aren't. He could give us a complete guarantee. But if he can't answer the question, it implies that there are.
I think John Healey said in the chamber, there are none that I have been read into in a sort of very dry way. I mean, the politics of this is quite interesting. In terms of this government, John Healey is one of the most respected, if not possibly the most respected minister in the cabinet.
He gives straight interviews on shows like this.
He's a safe pair of hands.
We'll find out, won't we?
Secondly, there's an element of a blame of both your houses, because obviously this happened under the Tories, so the Tory opposition can't get up and stick it to the government. I think the public will just kind of despair and say this is just another example, dare I say it, of kind of broken Britain. Nothing seems to work. It's another mess up. You know,
and it's a costly one.
Go on like this?
It's a costly one, isn't it? Because it's not just lives at risk, but £850 million.
Well, exactly. When people are scrimping
that
and
we're
saving,
going to have
when
to
people are
find.
scrimping and saving to get through their week and their day, and government just, I won't use the phrase that Boris Johnson might use, but money is just being, you know, wasted.
What implications does that have?
Hundreds and millions of pounds.
He used that about child sex inquiry. He used
he
it totally inappropriately and wrongly, Johnson, on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so is this going to have an impact? Will taxes have to go up? I mean...
No, it's spent already.
Yeah.
It's gone?
Yeah, it's spent.
Is it part of the black hole?
Well, it's part of the, as I mentioned, the 40 billion since 2001 was spent on an Afghanistan war that should never have been launched.
Yeah.
OK.
All right.
Well,
let's completely change horses now. Let's talk about John Turode, who, as of yesterday afternoon, I think at about 4:30, learnt when he was looking at social media that he was out of a job in terms of his work on MasterChef. What do we make of his sacking? Because evidence for what he's supposed to have done wrong is remarkably thin. We don't know what it is he's supposed to have said. We don't know who he's supposed to have said it to and who else heard it. We don't know what year this alleged incident happened. He says, of course, that he doesn't remember any such incident where he was alleged to have used a racist term.
He's actually said he doesn't believe it happened.
And he says he doesn't actually think it happened. I have to...
Oh, well, he'll have a great legal case, then. Let's see. Let's see, then, if he takes legal action against the BBC. You know, I've only got so many tears to shed. He's worked alongside Greg Wallace. I want to know what he knew, what he saw. Now, you can say that's separate, but if somebody is behaving badly at work and they're a colleague of yours, can you really be ignorant over so long a period when there are so many cases and so many complaints?
So what do you think
he might be saying to John, well, show it. I'll look forward to the court action.
Blimey.
No, I'm not. They always...
I mean, look, he's issuing statement after statement through his PR and his lawyers. It's a really delicate and difficult issue, because obviously I don't want it in any way to be seen to justify anyone who could possibly have made a racist remark. But at the same time, there will be a lot of people thinking there is something called natural justice, and Kevin has basically thrown down the gauntlet and said, well, if John Turode is right, he can sue his employers, the independent production company that's fired him. But, you know, a lot of people will be saying... You know, as you kind of articulated, Rich, you know, nobody knows what he said, nobody knows when he said it, he denies it, and yet he's been fired peremptorily. Now, Kevin is actually right, you know, if that is the case and he totally denies it, he can sue them for unfair dismissal.
Well, I have to say, this is a full disclosure moment for me here. As many people watching might remember, my wife Judy and I worked with John a lot from about 1996, I think it was, when he joined us on This Morning when we moved the show to London. And we worked with him for quite a few years until we left the programme in 2001. So obviously got to know him on air and off air in the way that you do, in the corridors and in dressing rooms and with a coffee after the show and stuff. And this is no comment on the allegation that's been made, because what do I know? All I can say is I was very surprised to hear of this allegation, because in all of those years, and I'm only speaking as I find, I never heard John say anything objectionable. I never heard him swear. I never heard him say anything racist, ever, or make any inappropriate remarks. So that isn't to say that the allegation isn't true, I don't know, but I was very surprised. In a way that, frankly, nobody was much surprised who knew Greg Wallace that these allegations came out. They kind of nodded and went, yeah, well, that's Greg. My reaction when I heard about John was, well, no, blimey, that doesn't sound like John. Well,
let John Turode appear in the court of Good Morning Britain. And, you know,
maybe
face
he
questions.
Will. Maybe he will.
And then,
I mean, he's just lost a big part of his livelihood.
Then allow the viewers as the jury to decide. But I would go, not just on... I would like to know what he's said to have said, that he has no recollection. Because if it's... I can imagine what would probably be classed as serious. There must be witnesses because somebody must have made the complaint for it to be said he said it. But I really want to know, to get to the crux, what did he know about his cause? Did he ever intervene? Would you want to be that man, one, who makes lots of women feel uncomfortable, never mind the groping allegations, or two, would you want to be that man that just stands by and does nothing, never hears, never sees, never says anything? Now, maybe he did intervene. Maybe he often
said... Or maybe he didn't say anything. You don't know. You weren't there.
Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. But if you're up to bad behaviour, I think I'd know it. If we were on this programme, in the green room before, afterwards, in the studio, I think I'd know it.
All right.
Well, look, John Torode said
I'm not saying
yesterday...
you are. Just to clarify. You're on that.
John has given us a statement. He said yesterday, although I haven't heard from anyone at the BBC or Banner J, that's the production company that makes MasterChef, I am seeing a reading that I've been sacked from MasterChef, and I repeat that I have no recollection of what I'm accused of. The inquiry could not even state the date or year of when I am meant to have said something wrong. I mean, you've got limited tears to cry, Kevin, so I expect you won't be crying for the BBC. But this came on the day when they were hoping everybody would be very excited about their iPlayer figures and releasing that. But also, they said that they're looking to overhaul the licence fee, as 300,000 households have stopped paying it, which is losing them 50 million in revenue. I mean, for the BBC, this is one of their big shows, which now doesn't have any presenters.
I know what they're going to do. You can reinvent shows with new presenters.
It's only telly.
If you get it.
No, seriously. I mean, look,
it's not life or death.
It's only a television programme.
Richard, you are on TV
Yeah,
at the moment.
I say that about my job all the time. It's only telly. Let's not take ourselves too seriously.
You're right. It's not a firefighter.
For a lot of people, it's a show they love. And
Exactly. People do care about these shows, and they're devoted to them. And I think a lot of people would be very sad to see what's happened to MasterChef. But, I mean, the BBC's just published its annual report. These kind of celebrity crises erupt every 6 months. It doesn't need this kind of pain. It's good to hear that they're thinking about overhauling the licence fee, because the licence fee is becoming more and more difficult to justify as people move to streaming. And it is facing this kind of fork in the road, the future of the BBC. The key thing for me is, you know, despite this crisis, the key thing for me is I always have a default position to support the BBC, because I think it's a really important institution. It has to modernise and move forward. But we've talked about this.
I'm not sure it is today.
We've talked about it this week. It's very bureaucratic. It's very slow-moving. It tends to lurch from one extreme to the other. So you get this kind of, you know, get the big TV personalities who are protected for their bad behaviour because the show is so important, right through to the other position where somebody's sacked peremptorily, as it were.
Well, I
without even a phone call.
But I would, frankly, I would like to have the choice to pay or not to watch the BBC. I'm happy to pay to watch the BBC. I would watch the BBC, and I would pay in the way that I pay for Sky, I pay for Netflix, and all of that. But I don't want to have to pay, even if I don't watch it.
Can I also have the choice in whether I pay for the royal family, then, as a Republican?
Let's not go...
I'd like the choice. I'd like the choice. I don't want them.
Would you want the choice to pay for the NHS? Can I just quickly give you a statement from Banner J UK? That's the people that make it. They said it's important to stress that Banner J UK takes this matter incredibly seriously. The legal team that investigated the allegations relating to Greg Wallace also substantiated an accusation of highly offensive racist language against John Torode, which occurred in 2018. So they have given a year on this. This matter has been formally discussed with John Torode by Banner J UK, and while we note that John says he does not recall the incident, the legal team have upheld the very serious complaint. Banner J UK and the BBC are agreed that we will not renew his contract on MasterChef. We also have a Greg Wallace statement, everybody, if you can brace yourself for that. Somebody can give it to me. The BBC said it apologized. Oh, no, that's not right. That's not right.
That's the BBC
I'm just going to apologise for the statement. OK, Greg Wallace has said on Monday, for 8 months, my family and I have lived under a cloud. Trial by media fuelled by rumour and clickbait. None of the serious allegations against me were upheld. I challenged the remaining issue of unwanted touching, but have had to accept a difference in perception. And I'm deeply sorry for any distress caused. It was never intended.
Right.
Crikey. Shall we move on to other things?
I mean, the Banner J statement is pretty tough in terms of Yeah, Kevin throwing down the gauntlet to John Torode. They have basically said...
Well, the ball's in his court.
Yeah,
They've basically said, we have told John Torode what the accusation was. We've substantiated it. And clearly, if he disagrees with it, he'll...
Well, let's move on now.
We will see that.
And as you say, that invitation is open to John Torode. If he wants to come on this programme and talk this through, he's more than welcome. Let's talk about Sycamore...
Let's
talk about Sycamore Gap.
OK.
The morons who went out in the night and cut this beautiful tree down and are beginning this morning 4 years and 3 months apiece in jail. They could have got up to 10 years for that particular offence. What do we think about the sentence?
Probably about right, isn't it? I mean, I would have thought in the end. But look, it was a beautiful tree. I walked Hadrian's Wall several times. You know, saw it when it was there. I've been now. It's a stump. And it's a crying shame it went. But in a way, what do you do with people like that? You know, they're stupid and horrible and reckless, and I thought it was all a big laugh. Well, I hope now they're waking up to their porridge or whatever they have.
I mean, there'll be some people who think they shouldn't have got a prison sentence.
Yeah,
we're debating that a little bit later in the show.
Prisons are overcrowded. It's an attack on property. It's not an attack on people.
No, I get that.
But it's quite, you know, to a certain extent, this is why we do rely on the courts and the judges, because everyone will have an opinion from not going to prison to going to prison for life, frankly. But, you know, and it's an emotive issue. It's interesting to see, you know, a technical issue, criminal damage, has become a very emotional issue, quite rightly in my view, because, as Kevin says, the Sycamore Gap was an iconic tree, an iconic part of the country, much loved. Apparently, people used to embrace the tree. You can now go and embrace the stump in an exhibition
of Northern culture.
Of the Sycamore
Gap.
Absolutely.
An integral part of Northern, and a beautiful part of Northern culture. Well, OK, they've got 4 years and 3 months. We'll be discussing that. I suspect that they may have got less had they not made such a preposterous defence.
Yeah, they completely
if they pleaded guilty,
it.
held their hands up and said, we were drunk, we were stupid, we can't apologise more.
That's a very good point.
We can't undo it, but we're sorry. But their defence was ridiculous.
And courts are entitled to take into account people's contrition. If people say they're sorry from the get-go, they plead guilty. They didn't plead guilty for a start.
No.
You get about a third off if you plead guilty.
But they'll be out in 2 years anyway, because they... I think they were remanded in custody after they were found guilty for their own
protection, according to the judge.
But I suppose it's a public statement of deterrent, isn't it? So maybe the next nutters who think, right, it's going to be a bit of a laugh.
Absolutely. Yeah, you'd think twice.
We haven't got long left. Could we do a quick romp through the economy?
No,
yes,
Come on, I'm holding out your hand and we're going to do it.
Speech.
Mansion House speech. Chancellor Rachel Reid's traditional speech. She seemed in very jolly mood, joking about how she'd been asked by a young girl what job she'd like to do if she wasn't Chancellor, and said she still wanted to be Chancellor, but seemed to be determined to be all smiley. Key things that came out of it. More mortgages are going to be available at more than 4.5 times a buyer's income. And for first-time buyers, more people will get that sort of nationwide help-out chance at a lower bracket. So before, if you earned $35,000 as a single person or $55,000 as a couple, you could get this. Now it's come down to $30,000 and $50,000. Is that a good thing?
I can't see a huge problem with it. People are getting really hot under the collar. They're saying, remember 2008 and the mortgage crisis and the property crisis.
Getting into more debt.
But we all know that housing is massively expensive. It's really hard to get on the housing ladder. There is a kind of disconnect between the kind of rigid calculation of your salary against what mortgage and actually what you are paying out in a mortgage if it's interest only, for example. And also, obviously, if you get a mortgage relatively young, you know, you can get interest-only mortgages, which are obviously cheaper. So, you know, there'll still be affordability tests. I don't think this is opening the gates to some massive property crisis or indeed a massive increase in house prices.
But it is where the financial crisis, this global financial collapse got a hand, because people were borrowing such high multiples. Then interest rates would go up, or you'd lose your job and you just can't pay. That's as well as the institutions just being reckless in their financial conduct. But it's probably the only way some people can get a foot on the property ladder. And with the decline in social housing, regrettable decline in social housing, far fewer council houses, you don't want to be the prey of private landlords forever. And
and they're actually looking at whether good rent payers should have that taken into consideration.
That's a long overlooked kind of anomaly that you should be able to build up a credit history based on being the person who pays their rent on time and so on, and that should go towards your mortgage.
We've got interest rate details coming out. few minutes, actually, about 6 or 7 minutes, so that might be an effect. Also, very quickly, two things. Department of Work and Pensions said 1.6 million migrants are now on universal credit, up from 883,000 odd 3 years ago. And also, the HMRC revealed it doesn't know how many billionaires pay tax in the UK.
Yeah, I think there's about 8 billion people on benefits, just to put that figure in perspective. And of
8
course,
million?
8 million, so I say billion, sorry.
8 million.
If it was 8 billion,
yeah,
then
8
we
million,
really
and
would be in
also,
trouble.
also if
Get
you're
ahead
on
of
universal
the
credit, you're often in work and you're getting your low pay topped up, so it doesn't mean you're...
People won't be happy about it, though, will they? The idea
People will,
is...
not be happy about it, and that's why we need transparency. We need a proper and open... I know it's a terrible politician's phrase.
That's why we need to put it in perspective, because is it about the figure about 15% of Britons are migrants, new Britons?
One thing I must say I welcome this morning, the news that schools are going to be teaching formal anti-misogyny lessons to tackle the manosphere, because these appalling reports coming out that more and more young boys are turning to misogyny as a kind of a cultural norm.
Absolutely.
It's terrible. So we're going to have formal lessons in schools to teach them the error of their ways, and I think that's an excellent idea, don't you?
I think it's a great idea, but you'll be attacked for supporting it, obviously.
No,
people will regard it as a terrible
No, well, the misogynists will be after you.
Yeah.
Those that think it's all right to go around abusing women. Sorry, I'm not going to mansplain it here. I can see now.
You do know what misogyny means, don't you? If not, the gentleman
I may be aware. I may be aware.